Hello, everybody. So are the intuitive patterns for the month of April 2020. The cards that I have for this, and by the way, I like to just say every once in a while that the deadline for my articles is usually the first of the previous month. So I do these articles a month in advance, and so I always find it really interesting because I'm doing them a month in advance, and then when the month comes, I'm like, oh, that's why that's why those cards were like that. So being a psychic is one of these interesting things of interpretation, and so what I try to do is I try and look at the astrology, I try and look at the numerology, I try and look at the cards and piece them all together, because I think if you look at things from three angles, then you have certain things that start to point themselves out and start to become more obvious. That's how I try to do this. But it is a little bit of an interpretation game, because usually the cards are bang on, and my interpretation is hopefully accurate. That's why I've been doing this for this many years. So thank you for watching, and thank you for tuning into this channel. And I hope that in this time of uh, required isolation, that it's something to look forward to. So the cards that I got were from the Osho Zen Tarot, were Playfulness, Flowering, and Abundance. From the Medicine cards, I got Dolphin and Weasel. In the Mayan Oracle, I got Ik, Mystical Power, and Aho. In the Ancient Egyptian Tarot, the cards are Temperance, Judgment, and the Queen of Discs. The Aleister Crowley deck, I got the Prince of Wands, the Magus, and the Princess of Cups. The Healing Earth Tarot, I got the Three of Rainbows, the Nine of Shields, and the Sun. And in the Words of Truth, I got Codependent, God, and Healing. So here we go. So it is in April that we celebrate the manifestation of Earth Day. I find that kind of interesting at this particular moment in time, because here we are, we're taking this forced break. It's Earth Month, so April is Earth Month, and in April is Earth Day. And here we are not manufacturing, and the pollution index is dropping, and here we are not polluting the oceans as much, and so the dolphins are coming into the canals in Venice. I want us to celebrate the positive about this month, because it's going to be one heck of a month on an astrological level, and I will have another video that is specifically on the astrology. But in this particular video, I wanted to focus on how we need to pay attention to the earth. And 50 years ago was when Earth Day was started, and that's kind of cool. And the earth has tried to teach us so many things and continues to show us where we are off and where we are making strides into new ways that hopefully heal and save this beautiful world. The earth is in a healing crisis. And as with all healing crises, we are having a strong fever that is continuing to build. It is hotter in the Arctic than ever recorded in February, and the spring has started early for most of this hemisphere. But the rains went north, and they did not quench the great thirst of much of the United States. Now, at this point, which is again on the 31st of March that I'm putting this video out, thank goodness it's been raining in California, because it rained further north, like up in Seattle and Oregon, and dumped up there, but we didn't quite get the rain. And so now we are getting the rain. And we say in California that the late rains are what serve us the best. And so this is a later rain, because most of the time it starts raining in February. And this year it did not rain at all in February in California, which is a huge deal. And we need the rain, because we really don't need any more fires anywhere. So anyway, but fortunately we are getting the rain, and we are getting a little bit of this quenched thirst. But illnesses such as the one we are in require fevers, and to break the negative hold of that which is killing the organism. And I also think of coronavirus with all this. While it is April and everyone is itching to spring into action, this month attempts to look past the obvious and into the mystical and magical elements that are also happening. It is beginning to dawn on more people that the healing that is needed is within us. We need to look at how interconnected and how dependent we are on this beautiful world. We can no longer separate ourselves from the very thing that gives us life. So many idealistic types are striving to attain a type of ascension consciousness. They want to have the ability to transcend this domain. But to do that requires a type of wholeness and unconditional love. This world is desperate for us to love it and to love all of its creatures. No part of yourself or anything else can be left behind on this journey. Love is the very thing that will set us all free. Yet to do that, we have to re-examine our concepts of self as it relates to the question of what is our highest and divine self. Then we need to move and act from that place only. Egos must be left behind. Partisanship must be left behind, like a child having a temper tantrum on a hiking trail. It is time to grow up and recognize that our ego is that petulant child that will refuse to move until it gets its own way. But it will never be happy or satisfied, so you cannot cater to that pattern or behavior. It is time for all of us to move from a place of maturity, clarity, compassion, and knowing. When we embrace this aspect of ourself, we can perform miracles and magic again. Acceptance is the key to freedom. Allowance is a form of love. We have to allow this process that is in play to work itself through, and while that may be incredibly unpleasant, it is essential and necessary to the healing that everyone is seeking. It is in the cards this month to examine what you believe is the concept of God. Do you have God in a box that is constructed from your beliefs and fears of separation? Do you see yourself a reflection of that, see within yourself a reflection of that divine spark? If you are actively seeking to express and share unconditional love, then you are fully attempting to integrate the archetype Ahau. If your love has expectations and judgments, then you are caught in the human condition of perpetual karmic suffering and not yet free. Step out of striving and give permission for everyone to go through what they need in order to awaken. It's not up to you. It never was. It's not about you being right. There is no right or wrong way to go. It is the decisions in this moment that will lead us to the lessons that we are ready to receive. There is a powerful solar and astrological tide shifting everything around us. You are not separate from the divine that is continuing to move through all things, whether you perceive the magic in those shifts or not. If you are expecting a miracle, you forget that you are that miracle. It is through hardship that we are forced to reignite the circuitry that will show the pathway to your potential. Harboring feelings of resentment, judgment, and anger inhibit your most powerful and magical self. While it matters what you think, right now, it matters more about what you do or don't do. Affirmed and conscious action is what is required. Opinions need not apply. Weasel is the power animal this month. It indicates that there are many things going on behind the scenes. There is a fox in the hen house, waiting for that perfect moment to strike when your guard is down and you are not fully paying attention. Sounds like a coronavirus to me. The Three of Rainbows is a dragon moving through the landscape, trying to gather up all that is of value and hoard it. Sounds again like coronavirus. There is a dragon inside that wants to take everything because it believes things will fill an inner emptiness and assuage fear. Of course, that is not true. But some need to have things taken from them to recognize that sometimes a simple life is a very good life. Sometimes we are being asked to see the joy in the sunlight, feel the peace within the embrace of family, and know that regardless of what is happening in the outer world, there is a place within us that knows love and prefers to give that love regardless of the cost. This month, expect intrigue. You are going to continue to be caught and surprised by the conflations of energy and words. It is especially important that you pay attention to truth and support that truth in others. There are those out there that have the intention to make you doubt your feelings. They want you dulled by the confusion so you cannot be effective. They want you to feel helpless and paranoid. It is time to get those cotton balls out of your ears and hear what is really going on. Do not expect it to be pleasant. It is going to be harsh and upsetting, but you cannot thrive or survive if your head is in a box or up in a cloud. So, everyone, again, take care, stay in, enjoy this vacation. It's like a stay vacation all over the world. And really look at what you have that's really important. I mean, I was noticing my dreams and really noticing how the fear of the planet keeps infiltrating my dreams. And there's no way, if you're slightly sensitive, to not notice that. And I want you to be aware of that. I don't want you to be light polarized. So, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that are very light polarized and they want to live in la la. And it's like, oh, it's all perfect. Oh, it's all good. Oh, it's all this. And I kind of operate from a Vajrayana place of Buddhism, which is that there's light and there's dark, and you need both sides in order to get to the divine. And so within us, we have these idiosyncrasies and these karmic issues that we came in to learn from. And so we learn through the fear, and we learn through anger, and we learn through, the things that are less than pleasant. And while we don't want to learn those things, we would prefer to stay light polarized on the light side of it. The reality is that you can't transcend without wholeness. So even Buddha looked into the water and he saw the reflection of his shadow, and he reached down and grabbed the hand of his shadow, and he pulled the shadow up to equalness with him, and then they merged together, and that's when he became enlightened. And I go, this is that moment that this is where you have to integrate your shadow. It's so funny because maybe it's because in my dance career as a ballet dancer, as a professional ballet dancer, that I was dark characters, Caraboss, Lady Capulet, these very, very dark characters. And in order to really express them, I had to embody them. And I had to love them to fully embody them, to make them authentic, and for myself to move consciously from the actual place of that identity's way. And so I learned to embrace and love a lot of aspects of shadow. And I saw in it the incredible value of it, that when you embrace it and it integrates, it becomes no longer fear-based. And so a lot of my fear went away because of that. And I can't tell you how many times I have worked with groups. Like I trained a whole bunch of psychics, and we had a group that met once a month. And, we got to this place that you can't grow any further unless you really look at this shadow and you really embrace the shadow. So I would say, okay, shadow is happening. And I'm a psychic, so I can see the shadow everywhere. And I even know what the shadow is. But there are some conversations that it's not appropriate for me to bring up in mixed company unless somebody else wants to bring it up in mixed company, and then for me to dive into that. So I can't tell you how many times I said, shadow is in this room, and we need to address the shadow, and they wouldn't. I mean, it was just incredible. It was like they wouldn't. I would say it again and again and again and again, to the point that then I'd say, we're now just going through the motions and we're not going deeper. So you can go wide and you can go deep. And a lot of people want to stay in the light and they want to go wide. And so we're going to have this spiritual tool, that spiritual tool, this spiritual tool, that spiritual tool, this teacher, that teacher, this teacher. And so they end up with this width of information. But even with that width, they have refused to go deep. And to go deep is about confronting yourself. And going deep is about really owning and addressing your fuck ups. And we all do it. I mean, it's not like I think, I'm perfect. My God, I'm not perfect. And no one's perfect, but it's that place where you have to be willing to be a great adventurer into your own self and into your own known, and to know your idiosyncrasies and to be able to laugh at them when they come up and they're no longer a trigger, and you're not hiding them from people like, oh, I don't want them to notice that I'm afraid. instead of integrating fear, and then you're instantly less afraid, and so then it doesn't show up in the same way that it showed up before. So to me, that's the door, and I point that out in a little bit more detail because I think, again, people are seeking answers and they're going wide. And what does this teacher say? What does that teacher say? What does this astrology say? All this. And I go, take these cards that are happening right now, and instead, what if we went deep? What if we actually use them as a tool to go deep? So I think going deep is fun. I know that that might sound crazy to some people, but I want to find out what I've hidden in the darkness. I think it's kind of interesting what I've hidden from myself. I'm always amazed and surprised at that I still have stuff in there that I'm working on. And I think that this is a process that never really ends. I mean, you can keep doing this entire lifetime. So with the medicine card dolphin, I mean, dolphins can go really, really deep, but they still have this playful attitude as they go. Weasel sees things in the dark and can count and figure out how many enemies there are. And yet Weasel is oftentimes hidden and you don't notice it very much. In the Mayan oracle, you know, the card mystical power is very revealing, and Ik is the masculine, which says we need to really look at, you know, where the masculine has taken over too much control, and the feminine is the earth, and it's time for the feminine to step in. And honestly, Mother Earth is stepping in. She's like, you know, I'm more powerful than all of you idiots. You may think you're so smart and you may think you're so capable, but notice what happens if I create a virus and, you know, I create my own little plague. What are you going to do then? So to me, in the Mayan oracle, looking at that masculine card Ik is about looking at where we allow the masculine to dominate and where that is unhealthy, and it's destructive. Actually, it's destructive to the very earth, and that we've got to find a balance, because it's not about destroying the archetype of the masculine. It's about integrating the feminine so that it actually has balance. And then the card Ahau is considered a polar light, and so it's way far north, and it's cold and it's bitter. It's like a polar bear, and it's a bitter world. It's a bitter, cold world if you're caught in the karma, and yet there is a lot of light, but there's hardship in that kind of frozen tundra. And here we are, most of the planets are in a third of the sky, which are in winter signs. And so we are in a cold, bitter, dry place. So the cards continue to reflect that we need to go deeper no matter what. And the healing is internal, and only when we heal the internal will the external heal. I remember when there was a book that was written about the Dalai Lama, and an interviewer said, what do you think about saving the spotted owl? And the Dalai Lama said, how do you expect mankind to love a whale, a spotted owl, or the earth if he does not first love himself? And that's why we have to go deep. And that's why you have to confront your fear of your own shadow, because in all honesty, the shadow is nothing more than your own wound. It's where you've been hurt. It's where you've been damaged. It's not about I'm bad. It's about I got hurt and damaged, and I shut down and I closed off and I froze a particular part, and I have a frozen self or multiple frozen selves that have not been allowed to come into the light. And, you know, as I learn to love them, then they are allowed to come into the light and integrate. So don't be afraid of loving yourself. I think that this is what this time is about. Like, let's slow down and let's take time for ourselves and see what happens. Okay. Thanks, everybody. You will find another video on the astrology shortly. Bye.